The bloody attack by Somali Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab on the Westgate shopping mall in the capital of Kenya has added a name to the list of major international terrorist threats. Here now is a well-trained, logistically coherent jihadist force. There was little guerrilla improvising in Nairobi. Al-Shabaab's protracted cross-border raid from Somalia into Kenya confirms fears of increasing instability in the Horn of Africa region. It proves that African Union troops' military offensive over the past 2 years to neutralize the Sharia-inspired militia was inadequate. It weakened them by driving them out of key cities they dominated, but it didn't defeat them. An Al-Shabaab spokesman as far back as in October 2011 had threatened Kenya with retaliation if it didn't get its soldiers off Somali soil. He said, "We the Mujahideen, we say to the Kenyan government, have you thought of the repercussions of the war against us? We are far more experienced in combat than you." The Kenyans had moved against the jihadists after mounting violence that has made international relief distribution nearly impossible and has also been used to cow both other Muslims and Christians in a bid to impose a strict interpretation of Islamic law. The Westgate Mall assault further confirms that leader Ahmed Godan has emerged the winner from an Al-Shabaab internal power struggle. That pitted partisans of concentrating fighting inside Somalia against those in favor of carrying it outside its borders. The group appears to have been consolidated. It is an offshoot of the Islamic Courts Union, which fought Somalia's transitional federal government. Although beaten in 2006, Al-Shabaab leaders vowed to wage guerrilla war against those they branded enemies of Islam. As of 2012, the Somalia-based cell of the militant Islamist group Al-Qaeda controls large swathes of the southern parts of the country and directly threatens neighboring Kenya and its capital. Valentina Soria, security analyst with IHS Jane's Information Group, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Al-Shabaab has shot to the world's attention. The scale and the organization behind the Nairobi attack proves a certain sophisticated planning and capacity. Was this a surprise for Western security services?
Well, I think that to some extent, yes. I think that there has been a sort of complacency maybe on the part of maybe Western security services and then Kenyan authorities as well, in terms of the actual capability that Al-Shabaab was left with. I mean, after most recently, being pushed out of, most of Somalia, the main cities in the country, I think that maybe there was an underestimation of the threat in terms of the actual capability that the group still had, both in terms of manpower, but also in terms of technical capabilities. I think it's important to point out that the target itself was a soft target. So by definition, maybe it wouldn't have taken too much in terms of, actually breaking in as such. I think the security measures around the complex weren't particularly have to be, to the task of, really defending it properly. So in that sense, it wasn't as, sophisticated as an attack on a more, secure, location could have been.
What does it say about the Kenyan security services that the attack and the siege dragged out for 4 days with so much bloodshed? How do you find they responded? Should they have seen something like this coming?
I suppose that the extent of how long the attack really went on may have taken maybe even the group by surprise. I suppose that the aim was really to, of course, to carry out the attack in a very spectacular way. But I would suggest that even the group itself didn't expect to actually last that long, and maybe that Kenyan group troops would have, Kenyan security forces would have, moved in maybe quickly than they did. There was somehow a slow response to begin with, and I think that after the initial, arrival of troops and security forces, I think that somehow they tried to take time to try really to see even if there was any chance of, negotiating with the militants for the release of the hostages, because at that point, there were several hostages still, with the militants.
Myths or propaganda are already being circulated about possibly British or American nationals being in Al-Shabaab. What does this tell us about the group, that it's going global?
Well, Al-Shabaab has been focusing its effort on the recruitment of people from the Somali diaspora in Western countries, the U.S. in recent years. In the past 2-3 years, they've really stepped up this kind of, recruitment campaign, and that is, pretty well demonstrated by the propaganda strategy that they've adopted. So really issuing, for example, videos on on their activities in English. Very, very sophisticated propaganda machine behind their activities.
Valentina Soria, analyst with Jane's Security. Thank you.